The former borough of Poplar is not a place to inspire much affection in the breast of the casual sightseer. Bisected by the thundering maelstrom of the East India Dock Road, the new estates are splashed apparently at random across a shabby network of mean streets and derelict railway lines. But for Dolly SCANNELL, it still holds all the rose-tinted charms of a ragamuffin childhood. For her, it's still a lovely place.
The buildings that are still standing are lovely buildings, and can you imagine them in their heyday, beautifully painted, and the school and the church. I really couldn't ever think why people thought it was a slum. We were poor, we were desperately poor. My friend's mother died with malnutrition, but I think it was the spirit of the people, perhaps, which made Poplar what it was, because it definitely was a lovely place.
Dolly's mother didn't think so. When her husband got a job as a plumber for Poplar Council and brought the family up from Kent to a tiny house in an alley called Grove Villas, Mrs. Chegwidden thought her heart would break. But Dolly was born and grew up in Poplar. To her, it was home.
This stretch from the bollard there to the main road were 8 little houses, and we lived in the little house number 3. It was a small semi-detached, 2 up, 2 down. Well, it was really more than 2 down because we had a basement and we lived in the basement. And there were 10 children and our parents, 5 boys and 5 girls. We had a tiny front garden with a moth-looking plane tree in it, and a side entrance and a small yard. And although I suppose looking back it was tiny and we were much cramped, we did have the streets for our playground. And really, looking at the tower blocks of today, I think I would still prefer to live in a little house like that.
It was a source of pride to Dolly that the house in Grove Villas overlooked not another row of houses, but a brick wall that skirted the embankment of Poplar railway station.
It was a lovely, lovely line with steam trains, a very busy line. The trains went via Victoria Park, where we used to picnic, right to Old Broad Street. And over here, oh dear, not a sign of its former glory. The building on the corner was the Poplar Working Men's Club, where my father spent the happiest time of his life. It probably kept him sane because he couldn't stand a household of women chattering. Famous people started off in Poplar. Famous performers, Gracie Fields, Wee Georgie Wood, the chocolate-coloured coon, and George Roby, the Minister of Mirth. I thought they were all a little vulgar, but my father adored every one of them. He'd be horrified to see it now. What is it, a trouser factory?
For Dolly and her sisters, the glories of the Working Men's Club were forever forbidden. For them, the Holy of Holies was Poplar Public Library. But she found that it, too, has suffered a humiliating transformation.
Oh dear, so this is Poplar Public Library and Reading Room 60 years on. It wasn't so dangerous when I was young. Poplar Library of my childhood was a place of shining glass and polished mahogany. Just about here was the reading room, and through the glass partitions we could see the old men reading the newspapers. I think what I remember most of Poplar Library, there was a sort of an excited fear as we entered the portals, and the large word silence, and we were very, very quiet. I think I remember the quiet more than anything. This part of Poplar is called Blackwall Stairs. I think it's still lovely, near the river. It was a lovely part of our childhood because it was a place where my brother and his friends learnt to swim. And we used to come down whenever we could on school holidays, and the girls would sit at the top, sort of digging in the We thought it was sand. I suppose it was like Monte Carlo to us, but it was mud. It never appeared dirty to us. I don't really. Perhaps we were so used to sort of dirt surrounding us that no, I never ever thought it was dirty. Once or twice we might see a dead dog, and I wonder why always a dog. I never remember seeing a dead cat, always a dog. And we would sort of feel a little bit funny about that, but then of course, I mean, we knew then that nothing was really perfect, so we just put up with a few dead dogs. My brother was a most daring one, and he would take all his clothes off and swim. When he learnt to swim, he'd swim in the shallow part, and when he learnt to swim, he'd swim from here right across the river, regardless of the tides and the passing boats. And whoever, he could only do it when somebody had a penny, because when somebody had a penny, then they could take his clothes on the 54 or 56 bus to Greenwich and meet him at the other side with his clothes. I thought it was absolute heaven, I really did. And when we went on our first excursion to the seaside from Sunday school, I wasn't a bit excited because I'd already been. I thought Blackwall Stairs was, I still think it's lovely, and I still think it really, we didn't miss having holidays at the sea while we had Blackwall Stairs.
The focal point of Poplar life was the permanent open market which lined both sides of Crisp Street, just over the East India Dock Road from the Chegwittens' house in Grove Villas.
Everybody went to Crisp Street. It was the focal point for Poplar. Everything we bought, there wasn't a thing that we couldn't buy. The first store was Mrs. Burgess and her sons. That was a fruit stall. And then there was the man my brothers used to call Bumpus. He had a velvet chair with a gold cord across the front, and people would pay and sit in his chair, and he would put his hands all over their scalp and he'd read their bumps. I always thronged with people, absolutely, it was lovely. But now, of course, I find it very depressing. It's a covered market, which really, I suppose, should be better, but I thought it had a very depressing sort of air. My mother was a country girl and had never really seen a town or even a working class area, so that when she first came to live in this little house in Poplar, she was horrified. She said she thought her heart would break. But when I used to say that I love Poplar, its people and its places and everything about it, she used to say very sadly to me, pityingly indeed, what you never had, dear, I suppose you never miss.